There is the night's work of Masai Ujiri and his draft team for the Toronto Raptors. Pick number 59 from San Diego State. Mr. Thames will, sounds like, be moved on and not be staying in Toronto. But, fellas, the one that jumped everybody, and, you know, just because there's no video or we haven't seen him in the NCAA, Masai Ujiri's made good moves before. Look, I start with this. It sounded like he had Giannis Antetokounmpo stashed away last year, and the kid played his way into the spotlight. Bruno Caboclo didn't have that chance, although he did say some other teams, and Dwayne Casey mentioned some other teams were very interested. And if you see the guy you want and he's there, you grab him, Jack.
I think, you know, this is, I mentioned this before, when you're in the business of drafting guys that aren't seniors in college, and there's a lot of unknowns, and you're dealing with that word that's very dangerous, and that's potential. But it also can be very rewarding if the guy develops. The one thing that surprises me a little bit is the fact that they're going to make the decision to start his clock and have him on the roster next year. Obviously, you know, there's a lot of examples of quote-unquote stashing a guy overseas for another year or two and developing him and then not starting his clock right away. So that surprised me a little bit. But on the other hand, you want to have your hands on him right away with your staff, your training methods, the entire thing, to accelerate that process. And you hope that, you know, as time goes on with his professional clock and his rookie contract, you're going to get enough return on that. More importantly, he's not going to be a guy you develop for somebody else out there. So there's, again, risk and reward involved with that too.
Fellas, look, let's face it, it caught us by surprise, but that doesn't mean it's a bad pick.
Well, you know, I kind of go back to just a couple of years ago with Jonas Valanciunas.
Right.
I remember being right across here at the Real Sports Bar and Grill. People booed, and they actually just left. They left.
They ate first, though.
Yes, and had a couple of drinks.
But, you know, on the other hand, Jonas was on the board for a first-round pick.
He was on the board.
No doubt. I mean, he was going to be a first-round pick somewhere.
But the point of the matter is, as we all know, everybody looks at the Toronto Raptors and they say, well, here they are with another international pick. Can we discuss the San Antonio Spurs for just a second?
Yeah.
About all the international players that they have on their roster? And just because, as you alluded to, just because I don't know anything about this young man. I have never, I'm going to tell you right now, I have never seen him play, and I never have watched him. I haven't talked to anybody that knows about him. However, Masai Ujiri obviously knows him well. They have seen him, and they believe that he has potential. And they believe that they didn't want to have him get away because they had Tyler Ennis get away. And I go back to a conversation I had with Masai just a couple of weeks ago, and that was his belief that you take the best player available, and to them, at 20, Bruno was the best player available. And then also another interesting thing, that the conversation went on to include that they didn't necessarily feel that the stage where the Toronto Raptors currently are, that that player would necessarily be a rotation player. And I think that's important to remember. And for whatever reason, I've been here now 6 years, every time somebody's drafted, they think that the player is automatically inserted into a lineup.
Doesn't happen like that, yeah.
And unless you are in Cleveland and you have Andrew Wiggins, that isn't always the case. That you look at this team, there's a lot of work left to be done. You have 2 restricted free agents, and you have an unrestricted free agent, and so there are other things that need to be done.
I'll just say one thing. I think there is a sensitivity here in Toronto with the drafting of Rafael Araujo as well as Charlie Villanueva with the fan base, that now you don't know this guy, and people automatically, you know, the sky is falling, which shouldn't be the case. But on the other hand, in defense of the fans, I understand the sensitivity having been here for 16 years. So I get that. At the same time, I think if you look at Masai Ujiri's track record as a basketball man, you got to trust the fact the guy's had a great track record. He knows talent, and particularly he's a very patient man. And I think you got to give him the benefit of the doubt here.
He was a scout, Sherm.
Well, he was. That's his roots, and he's been kind of that's where he got to this point in the NBA. But also the fact is what transpired last season for the Raptors has really accelerated the need to win here. And I think the fans are expecting it. This franchise is expecting it. But they understand there's a process that's involved. And the fact that they're taking a player that's going to take a bit of time to develop. Listen, Masai said it. He sent multiple people on his staff to go and look at this young man, work him out, get a feel for his game. So he did his due diligence. And sometimes the best GMs make decisions that are very unpopular.
Yeah.
It might not look good today, but they have the foresight and the patience to understand that if the right tools are put in place, that they can develop the young man. And that's what Masai believes in right now.
Sherm, you're right. It's not a popularity contest. I mean, he's making the pick, and his loyalty is to winning, and he's looking down the road. Let's face it, the two oldest teams in the NBA this year were in the finals.